My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 32 years old. 3 weeks ago, my brother Daniel threw my clothes into the street and said, "Dad always said boys get everything. Girls get nothing. So get out." This was the house where I spent 5 years taking care of our dying father while Daniel visited twice. The house where I held Dad's hand through his pain while Daniel checked his phone and left after 20 minutes. But Daniel didn't know one thing. Mom had been planning something secret for 10 years. Something he could never touch. Before I tell you what happened at that reading, hit that like button if you're ready for this story. Drop your location in the comments. Where are you watching from? Now let me tell you how the daughter who was supposed to get nothing ended up with everything. You need to understand the Mitchell family to understand what Daniel did. My father James believed one rule his whole life. Sons are worth more than daughters. He never said it with mean words. He just showed it every single day. Dad owned a car repair shop in Ohio. Every Saturday he took Daniel to work and taught him about business. I stayed home and cooked. When Daniel graduated high school, Dad bought him a brand new truck. When I graduated, Dad said, "Girls don't need cars. Your husband will drive you." When Daniel wanted to start his own shop, Dad gave him $50,000. When I wanted to go to college, Dad said, "Why? You'll just get married and have babies." I paid for college myself, working nights at a grocery store, sleeping 4 hours a night. I became a teacher, and Dad never even came to my graduation. My mom Grace was different. She was quiet, but she saw everything. She had a little flower shop and grew roses in our backyard. 8 years ago, she pulled me aside after dinner and whispered, "Sarah, I'm taking care of you. You don't see it now, but I promise I am." I thought she was just being nice. I had no idea she just signed papers with a lawyer that would change my life forever. 4 years ago, Dad got very sick. His kidneys failed. He needed help every single day. Help taking medicine. Help going to the bathroom. Help with everything. Mom called me and said, "Your father needs you." I quit my teaching job. I moved back home. I took care of Dad for 4 years. Doctor visits 3 times a week. Changing his sheets. Feeding him. Sitting with him when he cried. Daniel visited twice in 4 years. Both times for 30 minutes. He'd walk in wearing his fancy jacket, say, "Hey Pops," and leave. His wife Jessica came once. She spent the whole time taking photos of Mom's roses for Instagram. She barely looked at Dad. Dad never said thank you to me. Not once. But Mom saw everything. She started leaving once a month for errands. She always came back looking lighter, like she'd solved a problem. One night, Mom hugged me tight and said, "You're the best daughter in the world. When this is over, you'll understand everything." I thought she meant when Dad got better. He didn't. 2 months ago, Dad's kidneys got better. The doctor called it a miracle. We were so happy. Dad wanted to visit his brother 3 hours away. Mom had been asking him to go for months. That Saturday they left at 8 in the morning. Mom kissed my cheek and said, "I love you more than anything, Sarah. Don't ever forget that." Those were the last words my mother said to me. Semi-truck ran a red light. Hit their car at 60 miles per hour. The police said they died instantly. I got the call while I was at work. I don't remember driving home. I just remember smelling Mom's roses and thinking she'd never smell them again. The funeral was 3 days later. Daniel gave a speech about Dad for 10 minutes. He said Mom's name 1 time. Before the funeral even ended, Daniel pulled me into the hallway and said, "We need to talk about the house." Daniel told me to get out by the end of the week. We were standing in the church hallway. People were still crying in the other room. "The house is mine," he said. "Dad promised me years ago. Sons inherit. That's the rule." "Daniel, we haven't read the will yet," I said. "The will doesn't matter. You should be grateful I'm giving you a week." I stared at him. My own brother. "Look," he said, making his voice nice. "I get it. This is hard. But you chose to play nurse. That's not my fault." Behind him, Jessica was on her phone, already bored. Daniel, I took care of Dad for 4 years while I built a business, he snapped. Don't pretend changing bedpans is the same as running a company. He didn't wait a week. 2 days later I came home from work at 6 p.m. My key didn't work. He'd changed the locks. All my things were thrown into boxes on the back porch. Rain had soaked through them. My college diploma was ruined. Through the window I saw Jessica inside, drinking wine, laughing. "You saw me." She smiled, lifted her glass like she was saying cheers, and walked away. Called Daniel. "The house is legally mine," he said. "You have until tomorrow to get your stuff or I'm throwing it away." I sat in the wet grass and cried next to my ruined boxes. That's when I found Mom's letter. The letter was in Mom's handwriting. "For Sarah, when the time is right." I called my friend Mrs. Helen from the library. She came and took me to her apartment. That's when I opened the letter. "My sweet Sarah, if you're reading this, your father and brother have shown you who they are. I saw it. I always saw it. Call Mrs. Patricia Holmes at Holmes and Associates. She has everything you need. All the papers. All the plans. You are not a burden. You are the best thing I ever did. I love you more than all the roses in the world. Love, Mom." I called the number immediately. Mrs. Holmes' office was downtown. She was a kind woman in her 50s with gray hair. "Sarah," she said, "I've been waiting for you. Your mother and I worked together for 10 years. She knew your father would leave everything to Daniel. She couldn't change that. But she could work around it." "What does that mean?" "Yes. It means your mother made plans that exist outside your father's estate. Plans Daniel doesn't know about. Plans he can't touch." My heart raced. "What plans?" "You'll find out at the will reading next week," she smiled. "But trust me. Your mother is about to have the last word." The will reading was the following Thursday. 6 people were there. Daniel, Jessica, me, Mrs. Holmes, her assistant, and my grandmother Catherine. Daniel's face changed when Grandma walked in. "I didn't know you were coming." "I was invited," Grandma said simply. "By my daughter." She sat next to me and held my hand. "Fine," Daniel said confidently. "Let's get this over with." Dad's wishes were clear. Mrs. Holmes said, "We'll be reading 2 wills today. Your father's and your mother's. They're separate." 2 wills. Jessica frowned. "Why does that matter?" "Not everything was owned together," Mrs. Holmes said calmly. Daniel straightened his watch. "Whatever. Read Dad's will first." Dad's will was exactly what Daniel expected. 70% of Dad's belongings to Daniel. 30% to me. "See?" Daniel smiled. "Dad's accounts had about 60,000. You'll get maybe 18,000 after everything's settled. That's more than you deserve, honestly." Jessica was already texting. "Actually," Mrs. Holmes said, "there's quite a bit left. Your mother's estate is separate. And much larger than your father's." Daniel stopped smiling. "Wait," Daniel said. "Mom didn't have her own estate. She ran a little flower shop. Everything came from Dad." "That's incorrect," Mrs. Holmes said. "It's not incorrect." Daniel stood up. "Whatever tiny savings Mom had doesn't change anything. The house is Dad's. The real money is Dad's." He turned to me, venom in his voice. "I hope you enjoy being homeless, Sarah, because I made sure you get nothing. No home. No family. Nothing." "Mark Mitchell, sit down," Mrs. Holmes commanded. Daniel actually obeyed. "Your mother's will contain specific provisions," Mrs. Holmes continued. "First, she asked me to read this letter out loud." She pulled out cream-colored paper in Mom's handwriting. "To my children. I love you both. But love doesn't make me blind. For 35 years, I watched your father favor Daniel simply because he was a boy. I couldn't change him. But I could protect Sarah. When Sarah was born, Robert said, 'Maybe next time we'll have a boy.' I held my daughter and promised she'd never be next time to me. I watched her work twice as hard for half the praise. I watched her pay for college herself while Daniel got everything. I watched her care for her dying father for 4 years while Daniel visited twice. Daniel's face went pale. The money I leave Sarah isn't favoritism. It's the balance I couldn't provide while alive. It's what she was always owed. Marcus, if you're angry, ask yourself, why do you feel entitled to everything? Who taught you that? And what did you do to earn it besides being born male? Sarah, my darling girl, you are not a burden. You are my heart. Live well. With all my love, Mom. Silence. Mrs. Holmes continued. Now, the house at 127 Maple Drive. 5 years ago, the deed was transferred to your mother's name only for legal protection. Your father faced a lawsuit. Moving the house protected it. The lawsuit settled, but the deed stayed in your mother's name. She slid a paper across. The house, valued at $650,000, belonged to your mother. And she left it to Sarah. What? Daniel grabbed the paper. No. Additionally, Mrs. Holmes said, 10 years ago, your mother established a trust with money from your grandmother. That trust has grown to $1.3 million. It belongs to Sarah. Jessica made a choking sound. There's also a life insurance policy for $500,000. Beneficiary, Sarah Mitchell. Daniel looked like he might throw up. Let me summarize, Mrs. Holmes said. The house, $650,000. The trust, $1.3 million. Life insurance, $500,000, plus $18,000 from your father. Total assets passing to Sarah Mitchell, approximately $2.4 million. The room went silent. Daniel stood up. His face went white. His eyes rolled back. He collapsed, his head hitting the table. Jessica screamed. The paramedics said Daniel fainted from shock. Nothing serious. Just his body shutting down from information his mind couldn't handle. When he woke up 20 minutes later, pale and shaking, he looked at me. You knew, he whispered. I didn't, I said honestly. Not until a few days ago. But Mom knew. She knew exactly who you were. Sarah, please, he said, and I heard desperation. We're family. You have to help me. Help you. I stood up. You kicked me out before Mom's funeral flowers even died. You told me I was nothing. I was stressed, he said. The business, the pressure. Then who are you, Daniel? I asked quietly. Because I've known you my whole life and I've never seen anyone different. Grandma spoke up. Your mother knew about your failed investments, Daniel. The $400,000 in debt. The foreclosure. She knew you were counting on this inheritance to save you. That's why she protected what she built for Sarah. Daniel had nothing to say. Picked up my bag. I'm not letting my brother be homeless, I said. I'm not cruel. But I'm also not going to bail you out while you treat me like garbage. You get exactly what you earned. The consequences of your choices. I walked to the door. Mom loved you, I said over my shoulder. But she loved me enough to protect me from you. That's the difference. 6 months later, I enrolled in a graduate program to become a school principal. I kept working as a teacher because I love it. I rented out the childhood house to a nice family. I started growing roses on my apartment balcony. And every Sunday, Grandma calls and tells me stories about Mom, the woman she was before life wore her down. My mother didn't give me money. She gave me permission to believe I deserved it. If you've ever been told you're not enough by family, I want you to know, they were wrong. You were always enough. Sometimes the people who love us protect us in ways we don't see. And sometimes we have to become our own protectors. That's what I learned from my mother. If this story meant something to you, leave a comment. Tell me about someone who protected you. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe to Sister Sephora. Thank you for staying until the end. Means everything.